I have two additions. Alberta Transportation Access and Work Agreement is item 3F. And Clean Farms memo under information items 5.1.
Any other additions? I have addition in camera. I don't know the FOIP. It's just, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Labor. If there's no other additions, Ben moves. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes from January 9th, 2019, organizational. Glenn's moved. All in favor? January 9th, ASB meeting. Any questions? Any questions? You have a question?
No, sorry.
Oh.
Too fast.
All in favor? Carried. Items for discussion and related business. 2.1A, Council Resolution 190246, Bursary and Environmental Stewardship Awards, committee appointments.
Yeah, so just there was a recommendation made to council regarding the committee appointment, so I've just included both resolutions for that and the bursary policy, which were made at the February 5th council meeting.
So that's just for information. So can I have somebody move as information if there's no questions? Barry moves. All in favor? (2.1B) Council Resolutions Bursary Policy Approval.
And that's just the same, Mr. Chairman's recommendation to council for approval of that policy. And I think moving forward, after we've kind of got a year under our belt with the bylaw, that maybe that could be an addition under the bylaw, that policies could be approved by this board if you so choose, rather than going back to council. But that could be discussed at a later date, so.
Thank you. I think Barry's motion covered that resolution. Eichert moved. Yep. So we will go to 3A, request for decision, the Farm Family Awards attendance at the Stampede.
Yes, so every year after we make our nomination for the Farm Family Awards, 2 members of the municipality are invited to attend with the family as well. I know I've attended in the past. I think Chairman has and others have attended the event. It's a really good event. So we'd just like to have approval for a member and a guest to attend. And I need to know, I think, this month so I can RSVP to the Stampede.
The area councillor is usually sent, but we do not have a, Scott is no longer on the ASB, and that would be, I believe. So, Brittany, would you be interested in going? Yeah. Do you mind if I tag along? Because I did nominate him, so I would like, I'll be your 1+1. Perfect. So there you go, Russ. Yeah, I don't know if it's a plus either, but she's going to have to live with it. Can I have somebody move the recommendation for both board members? Barry moves that I and Brittany go. Brittany and I go. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. (3B) request for decision Alice Mapping Project, Workshop 1 and 2.
Yeah, so this is approval. I believe you would have got an email from Sarah just regarding attendance to this workshop too on June the 5th. We did have a workshop end of February. Brittany was in attendance, so it's just to move ratification of her attendance at that meeting. This is a project that we're doing with Alberta Agriculture that they're doing free of charge. But it's to identify potential areas or prioritize areas for our ALICE program and any environmental programming we're doing as far as what areas would have the highest benefit for ecological services. So this second meeting, I believe, is to kind of prioritize the areas that we picked out in workshop 1. If anybody has any further questions, I'll let Sarah answer them since she's here with us.
Any questions from the board? Move the recommendation? Yeah. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. 3C. ASB business plan.
Okay, so I've included our business plan, in particular for our new members and for a review for everybody. It outlines 9 goals, and this is over the next 3 years. There is some minor changes we've made just in regards to the environmental portion and goal number 9. So I don't know if you want me to kind of go through each area. I can just briefly let you know what each one is about and talk about the projects that we're doing for each, or if there's some questions that pop up, you can let me know. So goal 1 is in regards to having an effective, viable, proactive ASB. So of course funding is a big part of that, whether it's through our current funding program with Alberta Ag or searching out other funding programs. Partnerships are a big component. Our Red Bow Ag partnership with numerous other municipalities, Rocky View, Mountain View, Knee Red Deer, and Bighorn. It's been a long-standing program and relationship that works out really well, and that Sarah manages for us with those other municipalities. We do support other organizations like the Alberta Farm Safety Council, Alberta Invasive Species Council, that obviously have the same or similar mandates to us. So we do provide funding to those groups. Partnering with local 4-H clubs through our livestock scale and mats that we let them use free of charge. Promoting ag and the rural way of life. The Farm Family Award nomination that we just talked about, of course, is a big part of that. Our bursary nominations, just general articles, promotions that we do throughout the year in regards to agriculture. Just under Goal 2, Part E, the Ag Strategy, so that's still in there. Hire a consultant to complete an ag strategy for Wheatland County. As you know, we've talked about that a few times. Where that's sitting right now, as far as I know, is to add that component into our regional growth management strategy if that goes ahead, just to have a kind of a more focused look at ag within that bigger plan. Goal 3, responsive to current trends and issues. So that's through various memberships in various organizations, staff training, or any of the various conferences, workshops, and meetings that staff or board members will attend throughout the year. Goal 4, it's in regards to preventing the establishment and spread of weeds. Of course, you know that's a big component of our programming, whether it's through weed inspections, our municipal agreements with the villages to do weed inspection on their behalf, or our spraying programs, whether it's on our own roads or our own land. Like I said, it's a legislative requirement and one of our big jobs throughout the year. As well as Goal 5 in regards to stopping the establishment and spread of pests. So there's surveys that we'll do throughout the season, particular grasshopper, Bertha armyworms, send the info to Alberta Agriculture so they can map Kind of gives producers a precursor to issues that may pop up. Liquid strychnine program, which right now is in full swing, providing strychnine to producers for the control of ground squirrels, and then livestock predation calls in regards to predation kills on animals. Goal 6 is in regards to maintaining integrity of our soils. Soil Conservation Act is also legislation that we look after. It's not the issue that it was years ago when we used to summer fallow lots, used to work the land lots before seeding. There's been very few issues over the years since we've kind of gone to, producers have gone to that means of production. And also along with that, we work with Public Works on our roadsides for seeding and erosion assistance with erosion control on those areas as well. Goal 7, to assist in control of animal diseases, and that's more if there's a request from the chief provincial vet for assistance. Prior to my taking over the position, I think there was one instance of anthrax in the municipality where there was a request made for assistance, and the ag fieldman at the time did do that. So, Goal 8, increased awareness, implementation of environmental ag practices. So Sarah's programming, as you know, full suite of extension activities. Our new alternative land use service program, watershed and resiliency restoration program grant for Crowfoot Creek, and Sarah was also successful with Rocky in obtaining the same grant for the Rosebud River, and that's actually I got that in my report. And then on to just kind of the general environment program, what Alyssa looks after. The changes made for this were just to kind of have 4 general areas that everything falls under. No major changes. It's just kind of, as we found, as this program continues to develop, that it needs to be fluid rather than having specifics down. This kind of everything that we would work on would fall under those main 4 points. And with that, then it's just that's 2019, and then the following years are basically the same for 2020 and 2021. That's all I have for that, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for us?
Yeah, that environmental farm program, how many producers in the county have taken that up to now? Half of them or less?
The environmental farm plan, I'll let Sarah answer, see if she knows.
Any other questions? Rex?
Yeah, I was going to make an addition to the agenda, but I figured that this was probably the best spot to bring it up. So I guess some of the questions I've asked in the past is, what is the role of the Ag Service Board? And for me, particularly when it comes to how can we be effective in things like council. And so at our last ASB meeting, I actually went around and had a discussion with a few different members. A lot of their policies, like their LUB, land use bylaws, and things of that nature, are all sent down to the ASB, are approved by the ASB, or changes made and then sent back to council. So I wanted to make sure that that's part of our business plan too, is being able to look at that and have any policies or bylaws or things of that nature sent down here for our review, approval, and sent back. And I think it's going to involve a larger discussion about, you know, how that would look and how it would totally work, but to actually have some teeth into it, not just yeah, it looks good. Yeah, so I guess I would like that. From what I can see, that might fall into after we, in goal 2E, hire a consultant to complete an ag strategy for Wheatland County. I wonder if that consultant can address that then, and then we can bring it back when he makes a recommendation. And I'm sure he's dealt with more of that situation than I have, and maybe he can just give us some direction in that. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think that's part of the reason, though, why we have 5 counselors on ASB and council, because I do really like that idea. I just wonder if it would back up the process on council's end, having, because we only meet quarterly, which will be brought up in my chairman's report as well. So can we hold this discussion off till the chairman's report, because I've got a big discussion about kind of the role and how we can change it.
Sure, I'll finish that then. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. So we, sorry, I'll just go back to the, can I hold off this approval for the business plan until after my chairman's report? Does the board mind? Because we're going to have a quite large discussion on my.
The chairman, you can look it up or down.
I'm not any more important than you guys. Well, that'll work too. So, and we'll do the same for the ASB policy recommendation, I believe. Yeah. So if we can go right down to the ASB grant program for us, 3E.
So this is, was in regard to the invitation from Alberta Ag for the ASB face-to-face sessions in the province that chair and vice chair attended. Prior to that, there was a survey sent out to the fieldmen, so that was done before this meeting. So there's just a bit of a summary that had come out of the meeting held down in Lethbridge there for your review as well. So I'll leave it with you, Mr. Chairman, for any follow-up and discussion on that.
Yeah, so this is what'll be in my report. So if we can have somebody just move the information as presented in this, and I'll touch on the kind of overall arching issues we discussed.
Report is information.
Tom's moved. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Now, is Barb here today? No? Okay. Russ, do you want to do your report? And then I can try to do my report after the wheat commission. Oh, right. Sorry. I have that written down. 3F, the Alberta Transportation weeds in their, spraying weeds in their right-of-ways.
Yeah, so I'd just like to ask for approval to go ahead with this agreement. We did the same agreement last year with transportation. So basically what it amounts to is when we are doing weed inspection on their roads, rather than calling them if there's some action that needs to be taken on a small patch of weeds, that we'll just do it ourselves. Obviously, if it's going to take 5 minutes rather than them having a contractor come in to do it, it makes sense. So I think last year we spent about 10 hours on their roads, so not a huge time, but from a timeliness standpoint, it makes a bunch of sense, and it's more cost effective. So yeah, if it's all right with the board, we'd like to continue and sign this access and work agreement with AT.
Questions? Ben?
Question, Russ, when we sign this, I understand what your intent is. Does that also, do they also contact you and ask us to do some spraying for them that isn't part of our program? It would make sense that they would do that, but.
The only time they have is at Severn Dam. They've asked to do a little weed control work out there on their property. So the dam is maintained by transportation, but other than that, no, we've never got into, because there is private contractors that they do have for their other work. This is just a means for us to take care of the small patches quickly. So yeah, no, it hasn't.
Okay,
they haven't had a request for more.
With the government to government, there wasn't as big an issue with the private contractor sector, but yeah, okay.
Any other questions? No, if I can have the board's wishes. Ben moves to approve the transportation agreement. All in favor? Carried. Russ? Your report, sorry.
Okay, for my report, just a few updates as to what's down already. First on under operations of strychnine sales. So 93 cases as the time this report was done. We're actually at probably 130 now, which is substantially ahead of previous years. I think last year I sold about 160 for the whole year to June. So we're obviously way ahead of things. Capital equipment purchases are underway. Kubota tractor and grain bag roller and trailer have been purchased. There's a Ventrac mower that was budgeted for that we've demoed once, and we want to do another demo on it prior to purchasing. Basically what it is it's a small tractor vehicle that has a boom that can reach under fence lines that we currently aren't able to do much, if anything, with from a weed control standpoint. There's also slopes, like where there's big fills on our new construction. So yeah, like I said, it looks like it has a lot of potential, and we'll be able to use it in a number of situations. We're also looking at putting a new watering system in at Thurn Pit that we use for demonstration. We have a leaseholder out there that runs his livestock, but we want to move from pumping directly from the Rosebud River to a wet well. So to dig a hole, put a culvert in it, and pump from that. It'll be much cleaner water. I think it'll be a much better system as well. So Sarah and Jason are kind of working on that at the moment. Seed prices, quotes were sent out for seed prices. We only received one back this year, but this is for all our forage seed on our road construction works, whether it's the road right-of-ways or any disturbances on private lands that need to be reseeded to grass. And we reseed whatever the producer wants. So that could be starting anytime as soon as things are kind of dry enough and ready to go. We filled equipment spray truck operator position and also a light equipment operator position. And I think actually everybody will be pretty much back next week. Letter sent to Alberta, the Association of Alberta Ag Fieldmen regarding the tour, our agreement to host the tour in 2020. They just wanted kind of something official, and then they have it for 2022. I mean, what did I say? 2020, 2022. So there's no tour this year. There's no tour booked that I know of for 2020, and 2021 is Brazeau County. Farmer pesticide certificate training held at March the 5th. We had 13 producers attending, and so that's so producers can purchase phostoxin for bin treatments. 3-year weed inspection agreements are done, signed with the villages, so we'll be ready to go with them again. Transportation we've talked about. Classroom ag programs, George is doing those again. He has 2 schools booked for this year, I think the end of the month. One, Hutterite Colony, and I believe Wheatland, the Wheatland School. Environmental program, Liz has been working on a project management program called Asana that'll kind of help with our road construction program. Things are kind of complicated from a standpoint of approvals, particularly environmental approvals. So it's just kind of a tool to help us get ahead of things, know when certain things have to be done to help with that process. Also to note the Alberta, or the environmental publication that we did up, the designer for that actually won a graphic design award for best corporate design for communities under 100,000, and I believe this was the 2nd year she won an award for that publication. So we're really happy with it, and we'll continue to use it as kind of a year-end update for environmental programming. The Ag Conservation Program, 100 attended the farm transition workshops in Crossfield. So Sarah worked on that in conjunction with Rocky View, Mountain View, and AFSC. Environmental farm plans, as she said, have been really busy this spring. 8 completed and 8 in progress. I don't know if that's kind of still where you're at, Sarah. And then the Watershed Resiliency Restoration Grant that she was successful with applying with Rocky View for $186,400. And I think we've got around $198,000 for the Crowfoot Creek project. So that whole plan is actually in the package as well. Again, and Sarah and Lissa had a booth out in the foyer for Canada Water Week. I was gone for that, but from all reports, it was really well received and well attended by people. So, and today, Alyssa and George are at the Choices event as career mentors in Strathmore at the Civic Center. So that's going on this morning. And I believe I also have that at the end of my report, just kind of a description of what that is. So yeah, the rest is just back up the WRP application and then the career mentorship program. And that's all I have for my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for us? Rex?
No, it's not ringing a bell. We have had Rocky View out though to kind of go through things. We did a demo for them, bag rolling demo, and kind of went through our program with them. But no, I don't recall, Ben. Yeah, it continues to be a great program, really well received, and of course there's the pilot project with the funding for that. I haven't heard any updates really where that's at, but yeah, we'll see what comes of it.
Any?
Al Camry was down doing a presentation and he asked for a representative of that group. So they put me down on there as a rep for. So.
Rex, you had a question?
Just a couple quick ones. You said you got seed prices and you only got one, and who are we asking when we do that? Who do we put that out to? Is it?
There was 4 or 5 different companies that it was put out to. And yeah, generally we get 2 or 3. I'm not quite sure why this year there was only 1. I know one of the things we do is request a certificate of seed analysis, and I found that some of the companies don't want to do that. Like we request that prior or with the quote, and so over the years, there's some that won't put a quote in even anymore because of that. So, but UFA, AgCore, gold medal seeds. I'd have to check on the other ones, Rex.
Okay. I just didn't see anything on, are we doing gopher poison this year, or where are we at with that?
Yeah, so the 2% strychnine, that's what I had talked about at the start. Just we're at 130 cases, so Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 till noon till June 20th are the sales. And as you know, the strychnine is under review currently by PMRA and haven't heard anything in regards to updates from that. The comment period was last fall, so as far as I know, they're still going through the comments they received, and we'll know.
So supply was an issue in the past, is it, we're so far, we're so good, right?
Yeah, no, supply doesn't appear to be an issue, and I have lots in stock, basically of what I have room for, so if I need to order more this year, I will, but no, it's not an issue at the moment.
What? Have anybody from the Red River Alliance been in contact with meeting dates or correspondence or anything?
From the Red Deer River Watershed Alliance?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to, I think that's Mr. Hanger, I haven't talked to anybody there or recall anything. Is there something specific that would have came?
Well, when we was up at convention, somebody, I just forget the name of the guy I was talking to, saying that we're not getting anything back from Wheatland County, and they keep sending it, or sending it to a previous counselor. I says, well, not on it anymore. So I just wonder if you can reach out and get contact with them again, or.
Yeah, well, I did talk to him last summer about a tour, so he does know, well, he would know both me and Sarah. I don't know if it's in regards to funding, because we do fund them, if that's maybe, but.
Participation by counselors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Going to meetings or directors, or, because I haven't heard anything. So.
Okay, I can follow up on that.
Any other questions? If not, can I have somebody move the report? Barry moves, all in favor? Carried. Moving on, we will jump back up to 2.2A, Alberta Wheat Commission appointment, Hannah Conchu. Come on up to the podium. So Hannah, just for your information, these are recorded and posted, so.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm sure you read my bio, so I won't spend too much time telling you about my resume. So in chatting with Russ, the goal of my presentation today would be just to give you an overview of the work that we do at the Alberta Wheat Commission. Our program areas are quite full, so there's a lot to cover, so I thought I would just touch on a little bit on each of the main program areas. So first I'll start by introducing myself and my farm. So I farm with my parents, Eldon and Sheila Conchu, and my husband, Casey O'Grady. I'm sure you can tell who's who in that photo, so I don't need to point that out to you. Our farm's located east of Cluny, so about 10 kilometers east of the turnoff to Cluny, right on top of the Crowfoot Creek Valley there, where it meets the Trans-Canada. And since my husband and I joined our operation, we've had a lot more hands to get special projects done. So one of those things that we've done recently is to work on our official business plan. And so that's where we came up with this nice vision statement. And really the most important part of that is that our goal is to steward not only our farm, but our family and our community. So some of the things that we're involved in currently that are not actively farming include the Hazar Seed Cleaning Plant Board. My dad sits on that board. My mom was the vision behind Project Hope and Hope Bridges, two wonderful organizations in Strathmore that bring programming and the arts to people and children with special needs in Strathmore. My husband and I also this year took on coaching a volleyball team in Bizano, and that was lots of fun. We're both washed up college volleyball players. And I sit on the Alberta Wheat Commission as the vice chair, as you know, and I also sit on the NPAC committee. So that committee is tasked with trying to improve our business risk management programs by the next round of CAP funding. I did also want to mention that a couple of ways that we've interfaced as a farm business with the county that have gone really well. So we participate in the grain bag recycling program, and that goes really well. I just give Sheldon a call, and he comes and picks up the bags as soon as I'm done with them, so that goes really well. We also successfully decommissioned a well on our property, and I think I might have been in contact with you. And that went really well, and it was great to have a bit of funding to get that done. And most recently, my volunteer activity this winter was to put on the Mental Health First Aid for Agriculture course in Strathmore. And so to nicely wrap up that event that happened, and I guess just to back up a step, basically this was a first aid course but for mental health. So if you ever had someone in your life that was experiencing a mental health issue, this course would give you the skills to try to get them on the right track. And so the funding was made available by the Doomer Agriculture Foundation, and we also received funding from the county, which was wonderful. So I wanted to say thanks to Jason for getting behind that, and also to Russ, because he provided some technical support to getting everything done there. So it was a great collaboration between a number of parties. And so actually the Grains West magazine, which is a collaboration between Alberta Wheat Commission and Alberta Barley, they now have a podcast, and they featured our event as the very first episode of their podcast. So if you are podcast people, I encourage you to go listen, because it was a really nice ending to the whole thing. So it was really great. So to get back to what I came here to speak to you about, let's catch up with my notes here. So I currently sit as vice chair of the Alberta Wheat Commission. So we're a producer-funded and a producer-directed organization. And so we have a board of 11 directors. We have 5 regions, so 2 directors from each region, and then of course a director at large. Justin Bell is the other director that represents Region 2 with me. He farms near Standard Rosebud. You might know him and the Bellamy's. That's his farming operation. And so we represent 14,000 of the wheat producers in Alberta who pay their check off every time they sell their wheat. So on every ton of wheat sold in the province, we collect a $9 levy, and we direct it into these 5 main program areas up on the slide here. So our main mission is to increase the long-term profitability of wheat and of our sector through innovative research, market development, policy, and government relations, grower extension, and communications. So by and large, our biggest spend each year is research. So it's the biggest part of our budget. And so to sum it up, generally, we invest in agronomic and genetic research targeted at reducing input costs and increasing yield and quality for growers. So you'll notice that looking into 2020, that number jumps up quite a bit. And that's because the provincial commissions, so the other wheat commissions in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, have all taken on their portion of the Western Canadian deduction. So if you look at your wheat checkoff levy information when you on your grain ticket, you'll now see that there's just the one checkoff. And so that Western deduction, the Western Canadian deduction that we took on in August of 2017, that's responsible for the core funding agreement, so the agreements we have with each of the public breeding institutions in Western Canada. So we've now taken on that responsibility, and so we have that extra source of funding. So it's quite the responsibility to administer and oversee those agreements. So that's why that number jumps up like that. So these are our 9 main research priorities that currently guide all of our funding decisions. And so when it comes to making decisions of what we fund, we go out to producers and to our research committee, which I sit on, and we talk to farmers about what their priorities are and what needs to be done, what research needs to be completed. So this is our current list of priorities, and it changes as time goes on once objectives are met and as new production issues come to light. So these are 5 of our most recently funded projects. We currently have 50 projects that we fund, so this is just a small little snapshot. But I'll just highlight one of them that I'm excited about. So there's a researcher called Dr. Catton down at the Lethbridge Research Center. She's an entomologist. And what she's working to do is to quantify the beneficial insects that we have in our field. So currently when I go out and I'm assessing my crops for pests, I'm counting the bad bugs that are there. So I'm assessing that against an economic threshold to decide if I'm going to spray a crop protection product or not. But what her work will do will allow us to hopefully be able to quantify the good bugs that are there too. And that will count towards, better integrated pest management plans and hopefully less money spent out of my pocket. So that's a really cool project that she's working on. So moving to our market development program. So the main goal of the work that we do under this bucket is to strengthen existing markets that we have and work to grow potential ones. So some of our domestic efforts include working on transportation issues. So the Wheat Commission was integral in bringing Bill C-49 into place last year, I believe. And that's something that we've pushed for since the Alberta Wheat Commission was around since 2012. And so the main goal of that legislation, of course, is to balance the inequities between the shippers and the railways. So that was something that we're really glad to see in place. As well, advocating for best management practices at the farm level and as they relate to maximum residue limits. So that's an important thing too. Of course, always working in trade agreements to make sure that there's the least amount of barriers to bring our product to market. And just to give you just a quick idea of what those things might be, when government was negotiating CPTPP and the United States, Mexico, USMCA, the NAFTA 2.0 basically, our position and how that affected our industry, of course, was a huge part of that. So we had delegations working with government officials to make sure that our position was known there. We also were part of the development of PDQ Info, and what that stands for is Price Data Quotes. So that's a web-based tool that's completely free for farmers to log into, and they can look at average grain prices across 11 regions of Western Canada, I believe. And it's basically an active transparency that hasn't existed before. So that's a really important tool for farmers to be able to access. We also collaborate with other organizations in Canada, including Cereals Canada, our national body, CIGI, the Canadian International Grains Institute, which is responsible for all the technical work that goes on, and the Canadian Grain Commission. So each year we participate in international market development and outreach missions. So part of that is to meet our global buyers and to share the good news about the quality of our wheat, and also to go on missions where we're assessing our competition so we know how to better position our product. And then there's also some class-specific work that goes on. So if an end user or a market is looking for a specific thing, that's something that as an industry we can work to provide. So policy and government relations. This is probably our most lively program area. And basically the goal of this work is to serve as the farmer voice on key provincial and national policy issues. So as you can imagine, that leading up to the provincial election and the federal election, our directors and our policy staff are quite busy. And to give you an example of some of the work that we do in terms of outreach, tomorrow morning, Alberta Barley and Alberta Wheat are hosting an Agriculture in the City networking breakfast. And so the goal of that event is to bring together all the Calgary urban MLAs to meet with some Alberta farmers and to also bring in some small businesses in order to get really important messages across. And so our goal, of course, is to be able to build relationships with whoever forms government. And of course, as we all know, the divide between rural folks and urban folks continues to grow. And so they need to know things like that the rural economy contributes $90 billion to Alberta's GDP, and that we've sequestered enough carbon in the cropland in Alberta since 2002 in terms of an equivalent to removing 2.5 million cars off the road. So we really want to build that relationship and encourage them to have these things in the back of their mind as they're doing their government work. So the 4 crop commissions in Alberta, they've come together to create Team Alberta. So this is a collaborative policy body that works to get our message across in a more cohesive and sort of a way to represent more farmers across Alberta. So with all these 4 main crop commissions represented, so Alberta barley, canola, pulse, and wheat, we represent approximately 20,000 of our members across the province. So you can imagine how far that goes when you're speaking with policymakers. So the main objectives of Team Alberta are to go on 2 outreach trips to the Hill every year in Ottawa, and actually our delegation is there as we speak. Gary Stanford, our chair from Alberta Wheat, is representing us on that mission. So what are they going to be talking about this week? Well, trade, that's one of the biggest things, of course, with the issues we're having with canola and China, but also to represent that a lot of grain and oil seeds other than canola also go to China. So about $2.5 billion worth of grains and oil seeds are bought by China every year. So the message there is that we need to work towards a more stable and predictable relationship with China. Of course, transportation, we need to see some of the regulations come in place for Bill C-49 now that is in place, and all sorts of things that might be further down the list in terms of priority. So things like rural broadband and resources for rural folks. So I wanted to give this as an example of some of the work that Team Alberta has been able to accomplish. So I'm sure some of you heard that in January, the government let us know that they were going to be changing the rules around how Class 1 drivers got their license and drastically increasing the training hours and the cost to getting your Class 1 license. And so, of course, as organizations, we fully believe that we need to have safe highways and safe drivers, but it needs to work in a way that's not onerous on our small, any of our farms and ranches across the province. So multiple submissions and conversations were had with the Transportation Ministry and the Alberta Ag Minister, and we were successful in getting an application that would actually exempt agriculture workers and farmers from the new MELT requirements, so that's the mandatory entry-level training requirements, so that they could take their tests subject to the pre-MELT requirements. And so this is in place until November of 2019. And then by a date in 2020, these drivers need to be able to challenge the new MELT test. So it gives a bit of time for farm workers to be able to get up to speed on this. And the reason that we really jumped on this one is because we realized that, especially down in the southern part of the province where seeding happens much sooner, that any workers that were trying to get their license, they were told that they would have a 6-week wait in order to get in to do their training. So of course, that's not reasonable when seeding is right around the corner. So we were glad to have a little bit of good news in terms of that. And I'm one of those people that is trying to get their Class 1 license. I'm partway through, and so I need to finish my training prior to November 30th. So we also invest in extension and education initiatives for farmers. And so a few of those are mentioned up on the slide there. So one of our most popular events is Making the Grade. So that's a collaboration between the other commissions where farmers can come and learn all the technicalities and the ins and outs of how their crops are graded when they get sold to the elevator. Hedging Edge is a commodity marketing course put on by Alberta Wheat and Canola. And wheat stock happens down in the Lethbridge area in partnership with Farming Smarter. And I haven't been, but I'm told that it's the premier wheat agronomy event of the year. So lots of good things for farmers to take in. We also invest in other important resources for farmers. Sprayers 101 is one of my favorite things. Tom Wolfe is the vision behind that. He's basically the expert in all things spray application and sprayers, so he's a great person to support. And then a really important one as well is the Fusarium head blight risk assessment tool. So this was a partnership between Alberta Wheat and the Alberta government and some of the scientists there. And what this basically allows farmers to do is to get sort of a 10-day rating of what their fusarium risk is for their crop based on the stage of their crop and some of the climate data that's out there. We also support Ag Safe Alberta. And that, of course, was maybe what you could call the silver lining of some of the things that happened with Bill 6 a few years ago. And this is an industry-led and industry-funded initiative now. So no matter what the regulations and the laws are in Alberta, the goal of this organization is to improve farm safety and ranch safety in Alberta. And so some things are going to change with this program because it is quite young. But as it stands now, you can actually access resources for free as a farmer and a rancher. You can have a consultant come out to your farm and work with you on developing risk assessment tools or really assisting you in any way that you think that you might need help. And they can also come out to counties and municipalities. So I wanted to mention that in case that's something that you could potentially include in some of your programming. So we also support all of the applied research associations across the province. So there's 9 of them there. And the support we give helps for extension and demonstration events such as crop walks and seeding demos and those sorts of things. We put on a number of communications and related events to that. And we also have a number of initiatives that fall within our communications bucket of programming. And so some of those things are our newsletter. So the Grain Exchange, this is a partnership between Alberta Wheat and Barley. I actually brought my copy with me to leave here with you today, which includes all sorts of important things like agronomy, advice, upcoming events, and relevant industry news. And in terms of some other events that we put on, so each fall, hopefully after harvest, these events occur in all of the regions across Alberta. So we call them, they're regional meetings, but we've rebranded them Next Level Farming. And they're really great events, local events for farmers to attend in their region. And so we use those as an opportunity to update farmers on any of our activities and to also provide some other extensions, so market information and agronomy information. We've also developed Wally's World of Wheat, our communications team has. Obviously I can't take any credit for that. But what this is a booth type exhibit aimed at kids, and it's an educational opportunity to show them a hands-on experience of what it takes to get wheat from the field to their plate. And it's such a hit. I believe it was last weekend at Aggie Days, the numbers were just crazy in terms of the amount of kids that went through that booth and had a great time. And it's actually won a few awards, so that's a really cool thing. We also attend all the trade shows that happen across the province, like Farm Tech and AgriTrade and Ag Expo, and these are all great opportunities to reach out to farmers as well. So we have a consumer campaign that we've developed, which was unveiled in May 2017. So it's called Life Simple Ingredient, and it's quite different from all the other work that we've done. But it basically has the goal of encouraging consumers to celebrate the wholesomeness and the versatility of wheat as a healthy way to nourish their families. And so it's targeted at the primary grocery decision maker in the household. And the 2 main objectives are to give consumers the tools they need to recognize and celebrate Canadian wheat and to increase wheat consumption long term, because as you know, the conversations around wheat and its health are not necessarily positive all the time. And so this is sort of giving consumers permission to celebrate and enjoy wheat. So some other initiatives that we have going on. So a few years ago, we developed the idea for the Advancing Ag Future Leaders program. And so what this is an initiative targeted at mentoring young ag professionals in Alberta. It's the first of its kind, a program, and it's a joint partnership between Alberta Wheat and Alberta Barley. So what that looks like if you're a participant in that program. So you get paired up with a mentor, in your desired area or the field that you want to improve in. And it's a sort of a formal facilitated relationship over about a 12-month period. And so the mentee can sort of gain any knowledge they can from their mentor that way. And they're also given a bit of a professional development budget. So they can attend conferences, workshops, and those sorts of things to further themselves in any of the ways that they're trying to. So it's a really great program. We've actually had 2 people from our first graduating class go on to do some commission work. So we have one of the graduates who's actually a regional representative on the Wheat Commission, and Holly White, she's now a director on the Alberta Canola Commission. So I think it's just some evidence that what we're doing with that program is working. And the Farm Cash program. So this is a really exciting initiative. We're now one of the administrators of the Advanced Payments Program, which is run by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, but Alberta Wheat is now an administrator of that. So this is a great tool to allow farmers to manage their cash flow. You might be familiar with other administrators of the program, like the CCGA. But a couple things will set us apart with this program. So we've strived to streamline the process. So next month, you should be able to go online and do your application completely online without having to print off any papers or get any signatures. So it's a huge time saver that way. And we've committed to being completely transparent with any of the interests or any of the profits that we might gain from that program. So anything, any profit that we might have from that program will stay in Alberta and directly benefit Alberta growers. So it's a made in Alberta, stays in Alberta type program. So we're really glad to be involved in that. So that was my whirlwind tour of some of the work that the Alberta Wheat Commission is involved in. I guess I'll for sure take any questions. And what I wanted to say too was that if there's ever anything that you're working on at the ASB or the council level that you think that any of the commissions could get involved in, be sure to get in touch, because we'd love to partner with you that way. And yeah, I guess I would just say thanks for having me.
Is there any questions for Hannah? I just, if there's no questions, I would just, Hannah, would you be able to touch on the value creation program and kind of where the Wheat Commission sits on?
Sure. So I was hoping I wasn't going to get that question, Jason, but since you asked me, no, I'm just kidding. It is something it's definitely a priority for us right now. So to maybe take a few steps back, the conversations around value creation have been happening in Canada for a long time, so something like 10 years. But recently, the conversations have the pace has quickened because some work that happened at the Grains Roundtable sort of sped up the process, and it was almost like the conversation was, well, it's time to try to get some of this done. So Canada and the CFIA brought a consultation forward, and that's the middle of the process that we're in right now. And so, of course, as you know, they are consulting on 2 different models for ways to increase the revenue from farmers in terms of the cereals that they grow. And so in terms of our position, first and foremost, we always will support the fact that farmers need to be able to save their own seed without having to pay an extra fee on top of it. And so that's something that is a priority for us. But we also recognize that as it stands now, the system doesn't really allow for private investment to happen. And so is there a way that we can potentially have a value creation model that supports both of these things? And so that's part of the conversation that we're involved in now. But there's been some extremely major issues with how this consultation was rolled out. And so the chances of getting any sort of industry buy-in from this process, as it stands now, is very low. One of the most major problems with this process is that when the government started to consult on this, there was zero economic analysis in terms of what these 2 models would look like. So, okay, so this is how you're going to collect money from producers. There might be an extra levy taken off with the elevator, or it will be based on acreage. But then on the back end, what does that look like? So how much money do you need to get increased value into all these public breeding programs? And so we've been really pushing hard for that. because how can you make a decision about any of this without running some sort of analysis? So just last week, I was actually on a producer panel. So it was 9 producers from across Canada, and the government ran by us their proposed online consultation. So what they've done so far is they've met with people, they've had their 5 meetings across Western Canada, and then to keep the process going, they thought they could reach more people by doing an online consultation. And so what we were told is that the economic analysis is coming, but they're still not done. And they're trying to unveil this online consultation after seeding so that hopefully they'll have more of an uptake from farmers. So yeah, I guess I would come back to our position and that we are, the most important thing is that it has to provide value to farmers. You can't just add an extra fee because of course we can have a conversation about margins in farming all day long. There needs to be a clear value for that and a clear plan for what that's going to look like.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rex?
I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to today. So you had discussed some of the work and discussions that the commission is doing with China. So I guess a lot of us feel that there's only one reason why this is happening. Can you maybe shed some light on, is there actually some sort of a actual product concern or something that they have a legitimate gripe of the product that we're sending?
I should say that I'm a director on the Wheat Commission, so my any of the work that I've been involved in or that I've been privy to has been in collaboration with Team Alberta. So of course the canola commissions are leading that work, but it seems as though it's not a technical issue; it's likely political, and so I think that's actually a tricky thing to work on because a lot of the media and a lot of the conversation from producers is that we need to take a heavy hand with China. But I'm sure that from what we've seen, a heavy hand necessarily isn't the most effective tool. So I think, going back to some of those conversations that are going to happen on Parliament Hill this week with our Team Alberta, I think the goal is to work towards being proactive on these issues and to try to create a relationship with them that's more stable and predictable. So I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but.
I just want to know too, is there a reality from the government that it's actually a political issue? Because I worry that, the Canola Commission Council and the Wheat Commission are going to spend so much resources trying to fix this issue when it's not the problem. And I guess it might be helpful in building the relations, which is great, but does this government, are they in the background saying that, yeah, we know that there's a political end to this and that's part of this discussion?
Yeah, I'm not sure I could speak to that. I'm sure that what the government is saying to the media and what they're doing behind closed doors is probably a little bit different because, of course, you're not going to show all your cards. But I hope that, you have to be cognizant of the time and the money that's going into these issues. But, hoping for the best on that one because that's going to affect a lot of people.
Just in regards to research, Hannah, it looked like there's some interesting projects that you're working on or in conjunction with with researchers. So is that info on the website or how do you access that?
It's all on the website, Russ. And so we've actually been working to improve parts of our website, but you can go on there and see all of the projects that we've funded, and there's 50 of them. So also we have a fantastic research manager, and she is happy to speak to anybody about any questions that we might have about research, because of course the range of projects that we invest in are quite different. So some are more on the applied side of things, and some are very complicated breeding projects. So so any questions that you might have or any more information you're looking for, it can be found for sure.
Is the presentation that you put up here today, I know a couple of young farmers that need to be aware of some of this, is that presentation available through Russ to send to him so he can send it to us?
For sure, I'll make it available. And there's some slides that I included that I kind of, I guess I hid on PowerPoint to do with value creation, so they might answer some more questions you have there too. So for sure, they can be shared.
So then, your funding for the commission, where does all that come from? Is it 100%? Go ahead.
All producers. So it all comes from the checkoff that we collect on every ton of wheat sold. So I guess I should say that there's a few initiatives where we've partnered with, or we've received a grant. So that at the start of AgSafe, the way that started was from a government grant, but now all those things are running from producer dollars.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Hannah, for coming in. It was very informative.
Thanks for
I'd
having
just
me.
like to say it was a very good presentation. Thank you. I didn't realize you guys were involved in everything that you are, so that's one of the reasons I asked for the presentation. I know a couple of guys that need to get there. That think they're involved in agriculture and they haven't even begun to get the first base yet, so.
Well, good, for sure. Well, I'm glad you
thank
enjoyed it.
Good luck with it.
Yes, good luck with seeding, calving, everything. Thanks for having me.
Can I have somebody move for information? I will. Glenn moves. All in favor? Carried. You guys want to head right into my report, or do you need a bathroom break? Yes, please. For what? Okay. We will call the meeting back to order, and we will go to my report. So, to start it off, me and Tom went to the face-to-face workshop there in Lethbridge, and it was a very interesting discussion, one I didn't expect, for sure. They were wondering how to broaden the scope of the, and Tom, by all means, jump in, broaden the scope of the ASB in changing times in agriculture. And I think the one we saw the most was education and educating the consumers about our producers. And with that came rural tourism. And perhaps rather than looking strictly planning and development, this is from council side, rather than looking at rural development, rural tourism as just a strict planning and development, perhaps the ASB should be looking at part of it too, because it does coincide with our producers a lot, and our producers have to be on board. And as a producer myself, I mean, I can't imagine some city councilor coming to my farm, but that's what's going to have to happen. And we as ASB have to figure out how we can fit that into our mandate and our business plan, I believe, because that's going forward. We're going to have to really push, as Hannah said, where we're coming from to the urbanites. I don't know if, Tom, you throw something in there.
I think the thing that we lose track of being out in the municipality like this is, I believe it's 1.5% of the population are now farmers, you know, farmers and ranchers. And you start talking about, and yet we provide.
And it's 4 generations.
Yeah, yeah, and yet what we provide is so important. If you forget about, we have to get back into the, like, I believe we have to get back into the face of, to what these people, because it used to be that, you know, like even in my case, it used to be my grandfather was a farmer, and my dad took me out to the farm, and, but in the city, there's none of that anymore. No one can even relate to that. So we have to figure out, you know, we have to get the fact that how important farming, how important agricultural is to everybody's lifestyle. And I think you have to, yeah.
Just for information, a few years back now, a group of us in Hazard through the home and school, that's how old it was home and school back then, not parent, whatever they called it, tried to get something set up in the school system as a ag awareness program to go into the urban centers and try to put something in the school system. It worked good in our own area and a little bit, but the hardest challenge is getting into the school system to teach the children, because there's nobody in that system, meaning the ATA, that want to take that on. We had to go back into the archives to find anything on agriculture as far as a program in the school system. And I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, but do you want to truly get it into the urban center, you have to get it into the kids, and it's got to become a program that follows them through, and there's nothing, and the biggest challenge there is to get the ATA to allow you in there to do that. That's one way of doing it, to get, it's a long-term process, it's not going to happen overnight. And yeah, it's a challenge, a real challenge. The beef industry used to do it with the classroom ag program. I don't know if they're still running that. And it worked great in the rural areas, but we couldn't get in. We helped with that. We did, Terry and I did, went into the classroom with that. We went into the colonies, we went into Standard, we went into all the locals, but you're teaching the converted. And then to try to get into the urban centers, you couldn't get into them. Wouldn't let. One day I couldn't go with Terry because I was out in the field doing something. I don't know what it was. They wouldn't allow her to go into a grade 4 classroom because of the danger to her. And she said, what do you mean? I can handle a class of grade 4 students. There's not a problem for me. But they would not allow her into, the hardest thing to do is to get into that system, to put that voice forward. Because you're right, we're 4 or 5 generations away from the farm in that area.
Yeah, and obviously I've reflected on this quite a bit, and I'm trying to be wider scope on how I view, you know, agriculture's role and residents' role and stuff in the county. And one of the big things, so I did come across, there was something I was looking at the other day. There was some land for sale out by the new high school, the new school, Wheatland Crossing. And so then I started looking at that though. So it's showing this development potential already for land around that school, which was what I said would happen and what I was worried about. And then I looked at Standard gets a brand new grocery store, well-needed grocery store, put a lot of money into that. And then you have, you know, Gleason and Hazard and things of that nature. I mean, these communities really need the businesses, they really need things to support those communities because when we allow the sprawl, that's what kills the communities. And I'm wondering if I took my hat off, you know, on the ag side and put on well, how can I support the community? Because if I look at it from that way, I don't have to worry about the ag. I don't have to you know, fight so much for something that maybe be one-sided. I can try and focus my efforts on what helps that community. So, and what I'm saying is that plays into this whole, well, what is the ASB's role in development, or, you know, you're talking about tourism and all that. And that's actually what I wanted to bring up today when I was driving in. What is our role? But I mean, we've got some of these documents here that I guess that we were talking about going over, and I think that is it. I think we need to build a strategy, and then you try and follow the strategy, and there's going to be some things that we're wrong on, but what are we going to focus on, and what is it going to cost us to do, and who's going to put in the time? And so I want to do something. I guess that's why we sit here as a board, is so we can all get together and hopefully come up with a real direction, like something, again, with teeth in it. And I'm not sure where to start, so hopefully as a board we can get there.
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as our direction, obviously we have the legislative requirements that are kind of the core of our programs. Education extension's always been a big part of our program. It's never stopped. Like Ben was talking, when I started, I went into every classroom in the municipality, and at that time it was soil conservation. We continue with the CAP program, so we've got 2 schools out of all of them that have allowed us to come in. So we'll continue to do that as long as people let us come in. It's why we have 2 staff members at the mentorship program in Strathmore today. It's ongoing. Wherever we find an opportunity, we'll inject ourselves. It's not that easy, for sure. The farm safety program, it's why we support them. They are one group that does seem to get into every school, so including all the Strathmore schools. So while the program's focused on safety, obviously there's a whole ag flavor to that. So yeah, like I said, it's always been a mandate for us, and will continue to be. As far as the ag tourism goes as well, I think, was it last spring, we went to that committee meeting, if you recall, with there's an ag tourism initiative with Community Futures, Wheatland, Nehill, Rocky View maybe. So that is continuing. I just had an email the other day from Community Futures in regards to follow up to that. They have phase 1 of the report done, so there'll be obviously more work to be done on that. So that's one component that might address some of the questions with the ag tourism. As well, from what I've seen with ag tourism, potentially or primarily it's smaller producers that are looking for niche markets. You don't see the big producers, the ones where you probably want to get the community out. I don't know how you do that. It would be great if they would welcome, but the bigger grain operations, the bigger cattle operations that you would want them to see, it may be a little more difficult. But I think that could come out of this ag tourism initiative, and I can talk with a little bit more with Wild Rose. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and if there's more focus that we need to be paying on the education standpoint, we certainly can.
So the Ag Service Board that you're like the overall, like all of them in Alberta. Because this has to be, it can't be just us, because we have to reach, we got to reach that monster out there. Yeah. And that, you know, and that is, you know.
Going to the wheatland crossing, going to.
Yeah, because.
Those kids know what we're talking about. I'm going to phone Kyle Larson, the principal, and see if partner with the Alberta Wheat Commission, the Alberta Barley Growers, Alberta Beef, and set up a full agriculture day of some sort. And you push that through the urban centers.
And I think we have to, think bigger and start thinking about how we get all the services, like, so I think the conversation has to be had with the government, like with the new government, whoever's being formed in there, that this has to be, I think it has to be a prerequisite. The crap they're learning in school, you know, throwing a day of agriculture stuff is only going to benefit them, right? Like so I just don't know how to, we just have to, we're going to have to think bigger, and it's a long-term thing that's going to happen. But I think if we are interested in the project at this level, then we can step it up onto the next level. It's just that I think through no fault of anybody's, everybody here knows somebody that's in agriculture, you know, and we just assume that everybody does that. But, you know, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't take you very far into that city, and these people have no clue, just not a clue. So, and that has to change, or they're just going to keep.
Or this urban and rural divide.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be.
Before she left, I was going to ask her how many of the urban MLAs actually are coming to this, what she was talking about tomorrow. But you're right, and getting into what I was talking about before, getting into the schools is very hard, and you can go in there one day and do a big presentation one day every year, and you're going to get one or two kids. You're not going to, you need something in there that they get regular on a monthly, or they need to see it more than once, or you're not going to, telling them that the milk comes from a cow will last about a month, and then they'll forget all about it, and they'll go back and it's all off the shelf, and they won't know anything about it after that. The problem is, like I said before, is you need to find somebody in the system that's willing to do it, because they won't let you in there to teach that without somebody taking. There has to be somebody from the ATA in there that is willing to. So your problem isn't just getting in there; it's a bureaucracy above it to allow you in there to set up a program that will work. And it's a long push, but somewhere it has to happen. I don't know how you. We have to. Farmers, agricultural people are the worst ones at selling themselves. They're terrible at selling themselves and their product. And maybe that's where they have. Maybe that's where they have to look in the long run. Is don't be afraid to sell your product. Don't be afraid to stand up and talk about why you have to go out there with a sprayer and spray that crop. Don't take the offensive every time. Be proactive and tell them why you have to do it. That's where we're losing it, is on a lot of it's on the environmental side. We're destroying the country. We're destroying the environment as far as a lot of these ones that don't understand it are concerned. But.
I actually think in our own schools we're actually starting to lose our kids there too, even in this rural. Yeah, we do have kids, but that is vastly growing separated, very fast. And I mean, it's funny when your kids come home from school and the teachers are telling them about the CO2 emissions from a cow. What the heck else were they talking to them about? I'm trying to remember. And you're just, if the teachers are teaching your kids this, right? I mean, and they're coming from the city, so I mean, they need to be educated just as much as the kid does. So I mean, I don't know if that's a curriculum thing or it's a total program for education on their part too. But I think even in our own rules, we're definitely getting farther and farther away from that. I mean, a kid is not going to argue with a teacher unless he's maybe in high school and has it, you know what I mean? So to defend it, to leave it to the kids is not. I thought I actually saw on another topic real quick, I thought I actually seen some sort of a program for agriculture tourism where some of these farms were opened up and you can actually go and camp there for a night. You can only stay one night unless the provider allows you to stay longer. I can't remember where I seen that program, but
There's open farm days in
thought it was a
August,
whole
but,
summer deal. But
well, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any opportunities for overnights with that, so it may be different, but
Well,
yeah,
if I-
there is the open farm days
if I
program.
find it, I'll forward that on just so you can see that. So, and then again, on the other thing for the ASB that's always been dear to my heart was what besides all this policy and politics and all that stuff, the services that we provide as an ag service board for our producers, whether it's rolling up the grain bags, whether it's the machine rentals and stuff like that. That's what do we provide the producer as well. So that's, to me, is a huge goal as far as the ag service board, and that we have the funding to be able to do that.
In May 23rd, I think it's going to happen, hopefully. Got a request from a school in Calgary. They want to come out and see how the government works in Rosebud. I thought, well, that's a good opportunity if I can tour them through the countryside, right? So these bus tours are good for seniors, also good for kids. What would be wrong? We promote, have a bus tour a couple times, get it out. I can start with this teacher, maybe she'll come back and we'll start. We're not going to reach everybody tomorrow, but we start and we say, we want to come out in the spring, or maybe in the fall when we're combining, and I can tour you around to the different operations, feedlot maybe, we get permission. That's one idea, but one that I've always really been dear to me is what we do for the farmers. We're starting with the riparian area and we're doing some good work. That's an old thing started with the Crowfoot. But we kept all the information to ourselves. We don't share it with even all the people that live in Wheatland County. I see some nice pictures here, a fence and green grass, cows try to chomp down. I think if we get some of that out, start here and get those programs out, what are environmental things in the farms, how it's providing for everybody else. We got clean water, we got a nice landscape, we got birds, we got all that kind of stuff. And then one final thing, it's back to this bus tour thing. I know we got an ag tour coming up, but what would be wrong with personal invites to the city councilors or even the town of Strathmore to come on these tours? Provide it to them, get them there and get them on the tour and get them having a few comments in their council. It's a way we can converse with them a lot easier than somebody come. I have nothing against people come camping on my place I've got farmers out there that have people camping on their place when they're fishing and they take exception to it, but still. I think those are smaller ways for us to get involved. I don't know, I'll pitch it to this lady that's coming on the 23rd and we can start there. And if there's any interest, getting the tour I think is easy. It's getting the interest to come. If they're interested in come see what government looks like in Rosebud, I'm sure I could. Yeah. It's an idea. That's something I was kind of in the back of my mind.
Russ, are we planning to have just the local ASB tour again this year, the summer tour, just as we did last year?
No, I hadn't planned on doing it this year. I just want to back up maybe if I could comment on just in regards to getting info out. I find there's so much competition through different sources for information. It's still there, and one example, you just have to look at our county connector, is what's in there. It's 90% ag related. It's hard to reach the people with so many competing things going on. And we try to use those other avenues like social media as well. But I do find that that's difficult. The amount of emails people get, the amount of information that things are looked at and not really focused on as much. So that is a challenge, to get that good information out, particularly to the urban areas. So it's something we do continue to try with, but yeah, any suggestions to get more of that out for sure.
I hear you. Headline caught me a couple days ago. What was it? Beer laced with Roundup, glyphosate. It's killing you. You've seen that. It's all in the headline because I even read that. Usually I wouldn't. I understand where you're coming from. And yet that'll stick in people's minds. You can talk till you're blue in the face and some people won't believe you. But still, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, just ag advocacy in general is, yeah, it's huge. It was nice to see with the Wheat Commission that they're working with the other commissions, right? Because there's nothing worse than each group going off on their own and doing their own thing. So yeah, I think there's potential there for provincial service boards, whether it's through a provincial committee, to look at that, especially if that was a big part of the discussion at the face-to-face, and to reach out to those commissions to everybody to get together. So I'm thinking that may be the appropriate way to do it, is through our provincial ag service board committee. I'm not sure what the next steps were from your face-to-face. I'm assuming we'll take all the information from the regions and the surveys and then release that. But yeah, I think there's potential for sure.
Yeah, just to, build on Glenn's ideas. I don't like waiting for the government to tell me. They're going to take this face to face, and it's probably going to be a year before they have anything to come back to ask for. I don't know. We're not planning to do a summer tour for the residents this year. But to me, what if you could partner with the Wheat Commission or the Barley Council, Canola Council, and what if, rather than having a breakfast in the city, why don't you bring them out here? I'd rather take a shot at this before any ASB does, to show how it could be done. And if you take those urban MLAs and the city councilors and those airdrie councilors and take them on a bus tour out here and stop at your works, because I know Tom could get works involved, and we could get, I don't know, Calvin's or us involved on the cattle side. Rod Vergowan would be a great cattle guy. Take him out to Walker's to see the sheep. Nancy would love that. But something like that. Those are the people you have to target, along with the kids. And you talk. I could easily talk to Hannah, and you could go into each elementary school in Strathmore, perhaps more of a target area there, and have the Wally's World, and you could bring the Alberta beef producers in and have the cow demonstration on how to pull a calf, and this is the safest way to do it. We look out for animals' health and show them, go to high schools and show them more of the controversial issues like your GMOs, your Roundup issues in beer, because those are the things that your antibiotics and cows, how much you have to eat in order for it to affect you. 39 cows a day. That's how small that trace is. And to show, I think that's where our job is going to move to. And I'd gladly start it sooner than the government tells us. Even if I'm a producer, this is where I'd rather my money go to. I understand you don't want to throw money at something, and you want to wait until it's a mandate. And to me, that's the old school of thought. We have to get out there ahead of the problem. And I don't know. I'd gladly start to set up something like that. Even if it's not, I can set it up if staff doesn't want to set it up. I understand you guys are really busy, but I think that's where it's going to have to go to.
Yeah, certainly it's not about not wanting to do something. If it's a priority of the board, we'll do it. We have to make adjustments, so I would make those adjustments if that's where we want to go. So just the realization is that it may affect some programming, or it may not, right? But so if you are wanting to do something this year, we just need to know about it relatively soon then to get going and what the intent is. And like I said, it's not a matter of what we're wanting to do or not. I would happily work on an initiative like that. So, but like I said, it's the priorities of this board is what we'll focus on, but we just do need a bit of time.
Yeah, no, that's.
So, should we not be sort of thinking about, like, I understand what you're saying, Jason, but the cost involved is going to be substantial because no one's going to rent a bus out of their own pocket, so that's going to come out. But like, I'm just thinking like Heritage Days, like a big event, a lot of people coming in from the city. We don't have a presence as an ASB, as producers there even, right? Like you have all these people and there's an audience there that, you know, it's sort of like wandering through the, you know, like it used to be when you wandered, when you went to the Stampede, there was always a, and I think they've even lost part of that. There was always the producers were always there, right? Like the livestock barns are, people still wander through them, look at the cows and the horses and you know, they're amazed at the size of the horses and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, maybe we should think about maybe doing something a little bit more local first to, you know, see if we can get any traction on this and, you know, come up with a small model and then maybe we can expand on that.
Through the chair, yeah, there's still Aggie Days at Stampede Grounds. That just was last week. So yeah, and I think during Stampede itself, there's still a pretty big ag component of kind of everything ag. We have talked about that here locally, and I think it's a lot of the preaching to the converted. I think a lot of the attendance at those events are still your local communities, your local ag producers. Doesn't mean it couldn't be done. We used to have a display, and it was more focused on back in the days of the soil erosion. We do have some environmental stuff. So yeah, there could be an agricultural display. There could be a county display for that matter, just in regards to the county as a whole and promoting ourselves. So yeah, that certainly is an option. Personally, I kind of walk by those booths when I'm at an event like that, but I mean, that doesn't mean everybody, you know, would feel the same way, but.
You're right, Russell, and unless you're really into it, setting the booths up is one thing, but you have to have something that attracts people to come in and look at them and talk to you. And that's the tough part, is trying to get people interested in stepping in there and having that discussion. And if you're, just as an example, if you're an urbanite, third generation urbanite that's never been on a farm, unless they're really interested in something along that line, they're not going to go there. They're going to go somewhere where that's of more interest to them. So it's a whole process, and you got to start with little steps and work your way up there. But I don't know how you get there overnight. It's going to take you're not going to see much for a few years before something really starts to take effect. But it has to start somewhere, something.
We did the Aggie Days. We have our swine display there. I'm on the Stampede board there on the swine committee, and we have 3,000 kids come there. But most of those kids are from the rural. They're not from the city. They're Vulcan, Chestermere East, Standard, Bicycle. You know.
I remember going there, and it's like.
But it's the rural schools. It's not the city schools. But we do get 3,000 kids, and they have their little questionnaire about the pigs and what they eat and that. So they're interested. The ones, but they're grade 3s and 4s, and that's what they are. Yeah.
When this Erin comes out, hopefully she still comes out with her class. I don't know how she's going to do it. How receptive would we be if I was to invite her for a tour of farming? If she wanted to come out, we could, I don't know if we want to sponsor it. I don't know if we want to buy the bus for them, but I can certainly, invite her if there's any interest to let me know. I can facilitate a tour for her if they have a tour program. How receptive would we be to that as a group, I guess, or do you even want me to go down that road?
We gotta start somewhere.
Like I said, I think it's a good idea. The problem is, where do they take it from there? Once they get back there, where does it go once they get off the bus at night and go back home? What's the follow-up to it? An idea.
Yeah, no, I certainly think it's a great idea. For me, just from a work standpoint, the timelines are going to be extremely difficult for us to arrange something like that. Maybe it doesn't have to be that complicated, but for producers, I'm not sure, like during seating time, and then the liability issue always comes up. I don't know if it is, but just getting releases signed for the kids if they're going to be going on to farms, that sort of thing. So, like I said, I think it's a great idea. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be on board, I guess. So just real quick, this class is from where?
Montgomery Park School in Calgary,
Perfect.
grade 6.
Grade 6 class, the whole class, or is it just 6A, or is there 6A through F, or?
I don't know, I teach grade 6 and part program is to look at services and decision-making. So she'd like to have somebody from government at Rosebud, I guess. Rosebud's caught them through, I'm sure it wasn't agriculture, but they like to go out and see Rosebud. And it's a country tour and all that, which is good. I mean, they want to see something different.
Somehow you have to tie this government initiative that she's after with this ag initiative.
So the services we provide out at Rosebud aren't just tourism. Just like Calgary just isn't oil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's what we do.
Your services are to mainly rural residents who make their living off the ag industry.
So I guess I would be on board. I would look at how many students total. Is she just talking about a 6A class, or is there many of those classes?
I'd imagine one bus coming out.
Sure, but I mean, if there's other grade 6 components, classes, and it's only one piece that gets to go,
Start.
absolutely. But I'm just saying that for that school, maybe it's the whole grade 6 class. I don't know if it's 100 kids, maybe it's only 2 buses then, right? So I would definitely just reach out and find out how many kids, and if it's if it's a ridiculous number, then obviously that's not doable, but I can't see it being too extreme.
It sounds to me like there's somebody in the city at that school that knows somebody in Rosebud.
Yeah.
And part of their class program that they have ticks something off, and she got a hold of someone out there, and they're going out there to find it. That's how it all works. There's a part of their programming that they're doing for this year that relates to what they're coming out to have a look at. So they've picked up on it and coming out, so
Sure.
whatever works, works.
So I guess I would say, yeah, we are willing to do that, but if we're going to pay for this, we're also gonna add, what surrounds this, what this community is. Maybe you just have to figure out a way to tie it in, right? Because,
Well, I think for the first step, this one.
So, technology is an amazing thing, because while you're talking there, I texted my daughter, who's on the board of FFCA, which is a charter school in Calgary. They have 10,000 kids in there. Their board meeting is tonight, and she's gonna bring this proposal forward. So we have to figure out whether or not, how much of this we want to bite off, because there is, so we have to, now, you've started it, so now we have to sort of figure out where we want to go with this, because what do we want to, like, do we want to bring these kids out? Do we want to, and that kind of stuff. But like I said, Foundations for the Future has, I believe they have 7 campuses in Calgary now, 12,000 kids on the waiting list. They're not a private school. They fall into that middle ground. They're not the Calgary School Board, but there's a lot of people. So you tell me what we're going to do, and I'll tell her what we want discussed at the board meeting tonight.
okay, so when we're talking about a cost standpoint, I mean, if you've got that connection, if we can just get some of our ASB group into the classroom to start with, that's about the cheapest, quickest, fastest education we can do, get their interest, then we can develop the program that you're talking, the interactive portion of that program, right? So, but if we can get them in the classrooms now, I mean, I don't know how you could ask for a better scenario.
But I mean, is there room not only for us, but I mean, we commissioned your beef, Alberta beef. I mean, if you've got the door open for us, I mean, agriculture is agriculture. We're agriculture, they're agriculture.
I don't care what component of it, I'm just saying, if they can get
think that's where staff comes in, where they can deal with, because you go to you have a regional group that you work with through the Ag Service Boards. That's where it would have to come through. It can't be one-offs all over the place. It would have to come down as some type of a regional program through the Ag Service Boards. That may take some while to get set up, but that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, through the chair, Ben. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's two ways to look at it. Yeah, you kind of, if you want all those groups involved, it's going to take some planning. Or if you want to just do it, like there's two different things, right? To me, the planning part is helpful, especially in the spring when we're just getting gear up for things, right? So, like all the ideas are great. It's just difficult just to, just to start a brand new program. If it's just us, it's one thing. Like, it certainly doesn't hurt to ask the question, what's the interest, and go from there. If it can be fit in somehow. There's obviously budget implications if you do want to supply a bus or whatever, that would have to, in this case, would have to come back to council, because there wouldn't be another ASB meeting to talk about it. So yeah, I think they're all great if we want to move towards more of an education role. For me, it's, yeah, it would be helpful to be able to plan it, especially if there's going to be other groups involved. Yeah, through the chair, maybe just to add, and you're absolutely right, it does take long, and what Ben has said, because we've gone down that road before with the school board. We've written letters to the superintendent. The easiest way to get into the school is one interested teacher. I found, at least in the past, I don't know if that's the case. If there's one interested teacher, you take that opportunity, you go into the class, and I've done that before. So yeah, it's a bit of a process. To kind of just get in there, and I suspect it hasn't gotten any easier for sure. The CAP program is a prime example that it's still there, but to get in, it's just, there's not a huge interest in it.
That's where we went when we tried to set it up years ago, and like I said, we had to go into the archives to find any information on anything to do with agriculture in the curriculum. And to try and get this, Russell's right, to get something in deep enough that it would become part of the curriculum, you need teachers that are willing to teach it. And their workload is so great that they have no room to add anything to do with agriculture other than what's through their science program or whatever. And they won't allow, the only way you can get into that classroom and talk to them is you have to have a teacher that's willing to sponsor that program so that you can be in there and present that program to them.
And I mean, maybe it comes down to us putting in resolutions.
Yeah.
having said that, this will require more than 4 meetings a year. It just will, because the problem with meeting every 3 months is something gets decided and then it dies and then it gets pushed around at the next meeting. And I think we're gonna have to, I think we honestly, I'm not sure how many ag boards actually meet as rarely as we do, because you cannot get anything done on this kind of time schedule if you're trying to push some new initiatives.
Yeah, just, well, no, yeah, just through the chair. I mean, so I did look at this a while ago, and I don't know if, I think I brought it forward when we were going through our structure, right? Which we've just gone through our structure, how many times we're going to meet. It does say a minimum of 4 times. It doesn't mean there can't be more. There can be subcommittees appointed as well, which I would recommend this would be at a subcommittee level anyways, potentially, if you're going to get into the meat of things that much. But so in the past, this is a little bit older document, but Rocky View was 5 meetings, Leduc 6, 40 Mile 5, Newell 6, and they just have an ag business section in council meetings, so it's not a ASB like this, so that does make a difference. MD is Smoky, 2 to 3 meetings a year, Tabor 12, Wetaskiwin 4, Camrose 3 to 4, Mountain View up to 12, Red Deer 4, and Parkland 5. So there's a wide range, obviously. Yeah, certainly we could have more. I guess something to keep in mind is we do have 2 new members that signed up for 4 meetings a year. So it could have an impact on them, obviously, and what they do. So, so yeah, I think there's other ways to look at it just than adding more regular meetings. Or there's things that could be done. So, but it almost sounds like I don't know if we were revamping our structure again, or if we need to do some strategic planning as a board, or which I think is kind of where we're at, because we've kind of gone through it a little bit. But if we're switching gears, maybe, I don't know if there's council strategic planning coming up or priorities. Because I guess there's potential with that, or adding on to that with board members here.
I think that 30th is starting to book up pretty fast. I mean, last time we were there till 4. But, I mean, we could, we have the right to call a meeting whenever. So, I mean, you could have a workshop ASB meeting with all of council as well, because they're going to be a part of this. They're going to approve our budget. So, I mean, I don't think that's out of the...
Yeah, and just through the chair to add to the meeting thing. So to be quite honest, I quite often struggle with topics, agenda items for this. If there's a burning issue, I need board members to let me know. There is a wide variety of things that can be discussed, right? So obviously things that are pertinent to our kind of our core duties are things that would come up. So yeah, like I said, it's to me trying to guess what, you know, everybody wants to talk about. So in a way, like a strategic planning session for this type of thing, if it's a new priority to the board, then it can certainly be put into the plan. These are the expectations for my department, for our department, and then they can be carried out. And then if there's a need for more detailed work, that a subcommittee could potentially do that, because it would take a lot of fleshing out to do it. I don't know if 6 meetings a year would even do it. And is that going to be the primary focus then moving forward, is developing this? So I think there's would be lots of discussion yet to come from it.
Yeah, and I think I'll be adding it to the agenda next Tuesday to discuss budgets or something. I mean, maybe I'll try to just put it on the 30th for council to discuss and kind of see their perspective on things. I mean, I kind of know where they all stand, I'd say, but. Yeah, Rex, go ahead.
So then, I mean, so we've got your business plan and our policies. I mean, what we're talking about today really ties into this, right? So what do we need to approve this today? Do we need to, because what I'm wondering is if we need approval today, we approve it today, and we'll just do amendments moving forward, or what do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I was just asking for acceptance as information anyways. So like I said, it's a good review, particularly for the new members. Yeah, we should be looking at those things anyways, and looking at them in more detail would certainly be appropriate. So it was just to get you thinking, because whether they're ASB policies or council policies, like how often does everybody kind of read through everything? Even like a strategic plan for the whole county, maybe you deal with that more, but yeah, a concerted effort on that. And we did that with the ag strategy, right? We had a separate meeting for that. So we can do that with this. It does need to tie into the council's overall, because this is a subcommittee of council, right? So it still needs to tie in with this municipality's overall vision, I guess.
Some of what Hannah was talking about through the commission that she's working on is to do with outreach and that type of thing. If you work with them, just a general idea amongst the Ag Service Board that we'll work closer with them as far as their outreach and tie into their use, whether it's that commission or the barley growers or the beef producers or the canola growers. They should all be working together on that. Somewhere in there should be somebody tying them all together in that one phase, so it's all presented under one. Not just, it's not the Ag Services doing it, it's not the Wheat Commission that's doing it. They should all be working together to push it as one lobby group. And I don't know which one would take that on to do that, but that's how you get it out there. So they're all saying the same thing through the one lobby group. So it might be just a shift in what our business plan is, where we're headed, and the shift may be to work closer with these groups like the Alberta Wheat Growers and the Barley Commission. Just get them, because like with these guys, we could have had them in here once a year to have them talk and discuss issues. And the Beef Commission and the barley growers and the canola growers. Why don't we get them and start there and see where they're and work through those lobby groups, because they have strong lobby groups out there somewhere.
Straight up ask them, what can we do to help?
How do we work together to make that?
No, and that's a good point. I mean, we could have a physical meeting where that is the agenda, where we invite 3 or 4 of those groups in and we ask that same question over and over again, and that's how we can start to develop a program, right?
Yeah, and that is happening. Like, I'm talking with them, but that's the whole intent to having them in. We went to that a couple of years ago, having whether they're producers or groups or Alberta Ag in to discuss issues, to give you guys that broad range of opinions and those connections to make.
But you and I know that we had those people in and we listened to them and we asked questions about what might pertain to the county or what's going on with them, but I don't think we've looked at it as a scope like what we're talking about today. Like, okay, now what are we going to do to actually do something? What are we going to do to partner? What are we going to do to continue? Right? So I don't know if maybe now this is just something that you guys need to take to council and have a discussion, because you have budget implications and timing, you have staff issues, things like that. I mean, I'm on board. I think you probably need to take it to council.
I don't know where the board would stand, but do they believe that we should be having at least a meeting pertaining this I can't even issue sooner than the next? Because I don't want to waste time at a meeting talking about such a broad issue. I think there should be a meeting specifically for this topic.
When's the next meeting?
July 3rd. And I mean, if we want to make some headway, I think you really dive into this topic. So, I mean, I'd be fine setting a meeting in May and really diving, kind of right after seating, end of May.
End of May or even the first week.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know where anybody else stands. And I think you invite council. And then you can kind of, rather than, I understand that's our responsibility, is to relay information back and forth. Sorry, I'm not forgetting about you guys over there. I understand that's our responsibility, but I think council wants to never forget where the roots are, and they're pretty big into ag. So I don't think it hurts to have that merge of both boards, to have those larger discussions on where the county, not just ASB, but where the county wants to go as a whole.
Well, I guess you could also go it the other way around. You could invite the ASB into one of your council meetings where you have some time and I don't know what you would need, half an hour.
Yeah, but
I know.
Is council the area to discuss such an in-depth talk?
Well, the thing is, with bringing council into here, then it's still got, whatever you do, still got to go back to council to get approved. So, to me, it doesn't matter. If we want to do it here, you guys have more time at ASB.
I'm not talking about an ASB, I'm talking about a workshop.
I get that, but I mean, but then structured out of council, maybe there's more time. Maybe that's the biggest issue with doing that in council. I don't know. I just think we need to start. What's our step here? What are we going to do to continue?
When you're talking a workshop, are you just talking council and ag service? Because you're going to have to go further than that. If you're going to look at a workshop, look at bringing any of the commodity groups in that want to talk. And
Maybe you just do, I mean, there is 5 councillors on here, maybe you don't worry.
Well, I guess first of all, before we get to there, I think we need to just sit down and go, what is our scope? What is our direction? Right? We can decide to set that up, and then we can go, yeah, now we're going to have a workshop where we bring all these guys in and say, hey, what can we do? This is what we're setting up. But if we're going to bring them all in and go, well, yeah, we don't know what to do. We want to do something, but let's just start here. And then we'll, right?
you may be, there may be something already going on out there, and you don't, you've got to build on that. That's why I say, if you're going to have a workshop, bring in your commodity groups and use that as your topic of discussion. Is there any interest in looking at this further? There may be something going, maybe something that the Wheat Commission's got is something to piggyback on to get it happen. Maybe it's the canola growers, maybe it's the Alberta beef producers. They've been out in the public for years trying to communicate to the public to get their message out. Maybe they've got something they're working on that you can piggyback on to make it work, rather than trying to reinvent something that's already in the works out there. So if you're going to have a workshop, see if there's any interest in them coming in and participating in it, and then moving on from there. From there, then you can come back and say, okay, this is where the interest is. Does our Ag Service Board have any interest in participating in that, or do we work?
So, and I agree with you, Ben. I get that. I still want to go back to maybe my latest comment there. I think when we sit down and meet, and then maybe we can get some research done to find out what is out there. And that can be part of our meeting to say, well, we know that this is happening, whatever that list is, and we will build a consensus here in this room. And then we go, okay, well, we know these guys are doing this, let's have them, and then build priorities, and you know what I mean? I think you're right. And I know exactly where you're coming from, Ben, because you don't know what's out there. But at the same time, I think what Jason's saying is we're trying to build an initiative of our own as well. And if we can partner with people, great. But we still have to know that everybody's in favor of being part of doing something.
And then once.
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. So if it's the end of June, our next meeting is July 3rd.
Yeah, I would just.
So, and it's fair enough. I'm just not exactly clear if you're wanting to deal with this big one issue. It seems to me this is broader than just education in the urban centers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, and even what Rex has alluded to, that to me, this is big enough discussion and possibly a shift in programming that there does need to be some strategic planning involved with it. If it's that important, I can appreciate the urgency to get something going and just start something. I get that, and I've done that before. But like I said, we've been down this road a little bit already with the ag strategy, with our structure. We've just did a bylaw, right? So it seems to me we're kind of going back a little bit to square one and starting over. So it does have impact potentially for these members as well, right? If we're changing things and moving to more meetings. So, which is, like I said, it's the only way to find out is to discuss that. But I think it's a bigger discussion maybe that needs to be done through strategic planning session, whether it's just the board or council, and then the board, like one day, right, of each, or.
There. We are part of the Calgary metropolitan area. We can use that. They're developing policy and everything else. They have expressed an interest of doing an agriculture policy. And I've heard participants on that board wondering, thinking outside of the box for them. When this community grows to 3 million people, who's going to feed them? They're going to have to put land aside within the area to feed them. They're policymakers. They're the one developing for the future, and yet they have no idea where their food's coming from. They think they can put a couple quarters and have people come in and grow a garden and everything's going to be fine. And when we talk about ag fragmentation, that'd be the biggest waste of land out there. Over half of it would be footpaths and weeds for a little garden every 15 feet. I mean, but they're serious on it. I think that is probably one of the first places we should start. Get in their face at the board meeting, wherever.
Just through the chair, with that, there is a subcommittee that I was asked to sit on. So the first meeting was last week with the group. So I don't know how often the meetings will be. I suspect monthly. But yes, I certainly can relay the message to them through that. The group that was there last week was engaged. Rocky View was there. We were there. City Calgary, 2 individuals, Cochrane. And it seemed quite positive around agricultural as a whole, even within the city, right? We didn't get into the details about, feeding everyone within. So, I mean, that'll come, but so I guess we do have a voice at the table with that.
So what is the appetite like just for the board because we're just sort of fleshing this out, that we do some email communications, on ideas. Like it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but there will be opportunities coming forward from just the little contacts we made already, right? Like there'll be a question on whether we want to meet with, if a couple people from ASB want to meet with a couple people from the Foundation for the Future Board and try to figure out if we could do a class or something like that. So are we all on board with email communications with each other just to see how this thing is going to go?
For sure, but I do think we need a meeting, and I think we have to, I'll make the motion that we set up a meeting between council and ASB for a strategic plan on agriculture. Not the ASB itself, but agriculture, because I think the ASB will be tied into that. If everybody's good with that. You're saying after the next ASB meeting? July 3rd?
Yeah, I mean, the whole day can be that if you wish.
Yeah. Oh, do we have Alice that day?
Well, yeah, there's potential for that. I guess we could work around it. The only thing I'm not sure of, I wish CAO was here so we could discuss. I'm just not sure what's happening with strategic planning as a group, right? To kind of fit in with that timeline-wise, but I would tentatively plan on just, rather than setting a special meeting, is to deal with it at the July 3rd meeting. Then there's no need for an emotion other than to have that as a
Invite
focus. Yeah, if that's the wishes. Yeah. For me, it will, for sure, if that's okay with everybody. And like I said, I'd just like to discuss it with the CAO just to see from a strategic standpoint.
And just make sure council's invited and we're good to go.
Yeah, so just, 2 more members.
And by all means, in between now and then, reach out to contacts that you know so you can bring some information back on what other people are doing. I think that's our homework. I think we have a bit of homework to figure out which way we want to go when it comes to this issue. We've sat here for an hour and a half. Well, it's on the agenda for next meeting, so it'll be. Report. Face-to-face was good. Farm Tech and in Edmonton was good, but I think I covered that last meeting anyway. So, yeah, I don't have anything other than that to report. So I'll move my report as discussed. We'll just jump back up to 3 D and E. We'll start with D, and we'll just approve that for information, and then we can amend it as necessary. So can I have council, for board's wishes? For the ASB policy and business plan, sorry, not E. The business plan? Glenn has moved ASB business plan. All in favor? Carried. The policy? Rex has moved the ASB policy recommendation. All in favor? Carried. And then correspondence. Did everybody have a chance to read them over? We have Alberta Farm Animal Care, Livestock Care Confederation, Environmental Stewardship News, Environmental Stewardship and Climate Change Producer Grant Program, Herbicide Resistant Weeds in Alberta, and then we had the two added. Did the one added? Did you want to speak to the added information, Russ, or no?
Just as, yeah, the Clean Farms is doing this pilot project. My understanding is that ag retailers will be giving out these plastic bags for producers to put their washed chemical jugs in, and then bringing them to the chemical container sites bagged like that. So yeah, so we'll see how it goes. So we might end up seeing those at our transfer sites. I think it's probably, it'll be easier to handle in a way. It'll help with some contamination if there is, you know, some that aren't cleaned out completely, if there's a second layer of containment. So yeah, just for your info. Yeah, as of now, it would be just the existing standard Strathmore and Hazard, the chemical container sites, yeah.
Any other questions? Anybody want to read over the?
Just a question, like, how are they going to get the bags out to the farmers? Like,
Just when farmers do purchase their chemical and they pick them up at the retail, then they would be given out at that point. I think it just said select areas. I assume they're doing it everywhere, though. I don't know. I had spoken to them earlier about this, so maybe, like I said, maybe Wheatland's one of the areas they'll be focusing on. I'm not sure, but.
How picky are they tearing that paper label off? Tear that paper label off every jug. They pass. I know some producers don't tear it off.
No, I mean, yeah, it's tough to get it perfect. I think the biggest thing, particular for the shredders, is that they're clean. Because I've been down there when they're shredding them and there's still chemical in them, and I would not want that job at all. So the cleanliness, the triple rinsing, to be quite honest, I think is the biggest issue. Partial jugs still tend to get dumped down there sometimes, and it's an issue for the attendants, the people that are handling it from a safety standpoint. So yeah, I would say the triple rinse rather than the booklets being tore off. We'll still even get guys leaving the hole thrown in the cardboard as well with the jugs in. So it's just one of those things that it's tough to get everybody doing the right thing, I guess.
Well, when you look at the bags they've got here, you can see that the labeling is still on the jugs that are in the bag. So I don't think they're too worried about what, other than the booklets that come out with it. I don't think they want them. But
Is there any other questions on the correspondence?
yeah, one. If we're not on this one, I'd like to go back to the AFAC, that livestock care conference, and I was wondering if there's any, like, Ken Sove and myself went to one here a couple of years ago because we thought there was something else going on, and it was a one-day. We went up to Red Deer, and it was actually a very, very good learning experience as to where this is coming from, and they're actually doing a lot of work for the livestock industry. And I was wondering if there was any flavor of the board to send a couple of our producers up there, like yourself, that are involved with the sheep and Barry with the pig, you're on the swine board. Like they've got some very good information in there, and they're doing a lot of good work for our ag industry. And you want to promote your ag industry, that's where you're a good place to promote it, because the public has a lot of the public has this feeling that we're harmful, we're destroying our animals every time we move them down the road in a pickup or a, so I think there's a lot of information there.
Yeah, through the chair, I actually went to one day. This was the conference, that meeting you and Ken went to. I think they do have like kind of committee meetings or
Board meeting
meetings
or
open
something,
for
yeah.
the membership if there's certain things to deal with. And it is good. Yeah, at the conference, they focused a lot on, there was a speaker on animal rescue. Also, there's still a lot around the need for the script from your vet for medications. So just about how that's working out, and they had some producer panels discussing that, and so that's still the big topics of the day. The animal rescue, I believe Judy did apply for a grant for some training here that we'll probably be involved with in regards to that. So
It was, yeah, it was on the 26th.
yeah, through the chair, Barry, there is, I'll get meetings in regard to this. We're membership, or we're part of the member, but as far as attendance, yeah, for the meetings that do come up in between time, I could forward them out, or, I mean, I guess there would still need to be approval for attendance to them. It could go forward to a council meeting if it falls in between an ASB meeting, so.
Any other questions? If not, can I have somebody move to approve as information?
I'll move to approve as information.
Tom has moved. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. In camera, yeah. Yeah, so now